Alice Cade walked through the crowded lower ring of Vesper Station with the same calm expression she wore for every assignment. She did not move fast. She did not push people aside. She simply walked forward, and somehow the crowd always opened a path for her. People had learned to make way for the woman, with the black jacket, silver badge, and eyes that seemed to notice everything. Elise worked as a collector for the station council. Some joked that she was more like a hunter, quiet, patient, and impossible to escape. But Elise did not see herself that way. She followed the rules, did her job, and kept the station running. If she was good at tracking down late payments, so be it. This morning's assignment was a familiar name. Jonah Ricks. Human male, mid-30s, mechanic, tinkerer, and extremely creative. When it came to excuses for not paying rent, she sighed softly as she read the report on her handheld tablet. 3 months late. But the council was done being patient. This time, she had orders to collect payment or begin the eviction process. Vesper Station was home to dozens of species and thousands of people. Space was limited, and rules were strict. A single workshop bay like Jonah's was valuable. If he could not pay for it, someone else would. Elise reached the old service hallway that led to his workshop. The lights flickered overhead. The station engineers kept promising repairs, but the lower rings were always lowest priority. The smell of burnt metal drifted through the air. She could hear faint buzzing, clicking, and the occasional spark coming from behind Jonah's door. She stopped for a moment, steadying her mind. Jonah Ricks was not dangerous, but he was unpredictable. Last time she visited, he had nearly blown up his own ceiling while trying to demonstrate something he called a quantum coffee heater. The hole was still there, patched with metal sheets that did not match the walls. She knocked twice. No answer. She knocked again, louder. A crash came from inside, followed by a voice. 1 second. Don't open the door. It's delicate. Elise stepped back. Mr. Ricks. It's Alice Cade. Station collections. The door slid open halfway, stopped, made a grinding noise, and finally jerked open all the way. Jonah Ricks stood in the doorway, goggles pushed up into his messy hair, shirt covered with oil stains, and a smile that suggested he had been awake for far too many hours. Alice. Hey, good to see you. You're early. I'm exactly on time, she said. Right. He nodded quickly. She ignored the comment and walked inside. His workshop was a maze of metal scraps, spare parts, and glowing tools. Compared to the sleek designs of the alien engineers on the upper levels, Jonah's place looked like a box of junk exploded. And yet, every piece of junk was arranged in a way only Jonah understood. He moved through the mess with smooth, practiced steps, never tripping on anything. Elise stood in the doorway, letting her eyes scan the room. Mr. Ricks, she began, you owe me rent. Her tone was calm. It always was. The words were simple, direct, and final. The station council did not waste time with long explanations. Jonah stopped in the middle of the room. He turned slowly toward her, blinking several times. Yes, he said carefully. I know. You are 3 months late, she said. This is your final warning. I need payment today. Jonah rubbed the back of his neck. Right. Yes. Payment. About that. Elise waited. She had heard every excuse imaginable. Lost credits, system error, surprise medical bill, forgotten password, faulty transfer, stolen wallet, temporary blackout, or Jonah's favorite, I swear, I paid that already. But today, he didn't start with an excuse. He looked strangely serious. What if, he said quietly, I gave you something better? Elise almost sighed. She did not show emotion, but she was tired. Better than rent? The council will not accept scrap or inventions. It's not scrap, Jonah said quickly. It's something important. Really important. She crossed her arms. Mr. Ricks, unless what you are about to show me pays for your workshop, I cannot accept it. Quote, just look, he insisted. Please. There was something in his voice she had not heard before fear. Jonah rarely sounded nervous. Annoyingly optimistic. Yes, but never afraid. She followed him deeper into the workshop, stepping over wires and stepping around stacks of unidentifiable equipment. They stopped at a metal table covered with a dark cloth. Jonah grabbed the edge of the cloth, hesitated, and then pulled it off in one swift motion. Underneath was a device unlike anything she had seen. It was the size of a small crate, made of curved black alloy plates that shifted their color like liquid metal. Thin veins of blue light pulsed across the surface in slow, steady waves. The device hummed softly, like it was breathing. Elise tilted her head. What is it? That, Jonah said, is why I can't pay rent. Not a good start. He waved his hands quickly. No, listen. I've been working on this for months. I called it a subspace harmonic scanner. But the name doesn't matter. What matters is what it does. And what does it do? She asked, though she remained doubtful. Jonah swallowed. Then he tapped the side of the machine. The pulsing lights changed from blue to bright white. The air above the device shimmered, forming a floating screen, thin as glass and filled with shifting symbols. Elise stepped closer. What am I looking at? She asked. The energy pattern around Vesper Station, Jonah said. Specifically, the distortions in subspace. I've been tracking them. They're getting worse. The image zoomed in. The distortions appeared like cracks, tiny at first, then widening over time. They spread around the station like a spider web. Elise frowned. Why hasn't the station detected these? Because our sensors can't see them, Jonah replied. Not human sensors. Not alien ones. No one even knew these distortions existed. But I found old human notes like ancient pre-Exodus research that talked about subspace fracture theory. I rebuilt the scanner based on that. She stared at the floating image, then at Jonah. And you're sure this is real? Jonah lowered his voice. Alice, the fractures are growing. If they keep spreading, they'll tear open. And I think something is on the other side. A chill ran down her spine, though her face stayed calm. Something? She repeated. I don't know what, but whatever it is, it's coming. I didn't skip rent because I'm lazy. I skipped rent because I was using every credit I had to build this. To warn someone. To warn the station. For the first time, Alice felt unsure. Jonah Ricks was a tinkerer, yes. But he was not a liar. And he certainly was not a coward. If he looked afraid, then something was wrong. She studied the shifting cracks on the projection. They moved slowly, like living things. You expect the council to believe this? She asked. Jonah shook his head. No. That's why I'm talking to you first. You're fair. You don't jump to conclusions, and you always listen. He pointed at the device. I need help. Real help. If the council shuts me down, the scanner will be lost, and no one will understand what's coming until it's too late. Alice stared at him for several long seconds. Then she took a slow breath. I cannot promise the council will believe this. They value proof. You have proof, Jonah said, tapping the device again. Right here. She nodded slightly. I will take this to the council. I will take this to the council. Jonah exhaled in relief. But, she added, this does not erase your rent. He winced. I know. But if this saves the station, isn't that worth something? Elise looked at him. She did not smile, but something softened in her expression. Show me everything, she said quietly. Jonah's eyes lit up. He grabbed a data tablet full of notes, sketches, calculations, and strange diagrams. He spoke quickly, explaining how the fractures behaved like pressure points in subspace, how energy built around them, how something outside normal space seemed to be pushing them wider. Elise listened with full attention. She did not understand every detail, but she understood enough. The danger was real. And if the council ignored Jonah, the station might pay the price. When he finished explaining, Elise said, "Prepare a full demonstration. I will schedule a council meeting." Jonah nodded, then hesitated. "I believe what I saw," she said, "and I believe you are not lying." He let out a long, shaky breath. Outside, somewhere deep in the metal walls of Vesper Station, a faint rumble echoed. Elise glanced toward the ceiling. "What was that?" she asked. Jonah did not answer right away. He swallowed, eyes wide. "I think," he whispered, "the fractures are growing faster." The council chambers were larger than Jonah had expected. Metal walls curved overhead, lined with transparent panels, showing the swirling void outside. Alien species from across the station filled the benches. Humans were a minority here, though their reputation for ingenuity and stubbornness always drew attention. Jonah felt his stomach tighten. He was just a tinkerer, not a politician, not a diplomat, not even a soldier. And yet, he had to convince them that his warnings were real. Elise walked beside him, calm as ever. She carried the scanner carefully, as if it were a fragile artifact from an ancient civilization. Her presence gave him courage. She had not flinched when she saw the device. She had listened, and now she was vouching for him. That alone mattered more than any council vote. As they entered, a council member's voice boomed. Elise gave a polite nod. "I am presenting a discovery on behalf of one of the station's residents." The chair of the council, a tall being with translucent skin and eyes that shimmered like the station's lights, leaned forward. "Discovery?" Jonah swallowed. "Yes, I found something. Something dangerous." A silence fell. Everyone's eyes turned toward him. Some leaned forward. Some narrowed, their eyes suspiciously. Jonah realized, as always, that humans were often underestimated. That worked in his favor. Elise stepped forward. "He has built a subspace harmonic scanner. It detects distortions in space that our sensors cannot see." The council murmured. Jonah's heart pounded. He knew most of them would dismiss him. But then the chair raised a hand. "Demonstrate." Jonah's hands trembled slightly as he placed the device on the central table. The lights pulsed. Veins of blue electricity traveling across the black surface. Slowly, a projection appeared in the air above it. The same subspace fractures he had seen in his workshop. The cracks spread across the station's region of space like thin, glowing veins. A gasping noise echoed from the assembly. Several aliens leaned forward, examining the projection. Some whispered to their neighbors. "Explain," the chair demanded. Jonah pointed to the largest fracture. "These distortions are growing. If they continue, they could open a rift in subspace. Something could come through something unknown. I do not know what, but it will be dangerous." One council member, a tall reptilian being with reflective scales, spoke. "And why should we believe a human tinkerer over decades of scientific observation?" Jonah swallowed. "Because our sensors cannot see this. I built the scanner from old research, reverse engineered it. The fractures are real. I can show you the energy readings." He tapped the device again. Numbers, graphs, and waveforms floated in the air. The assembly members leaned closer, some frowning, some whispering. Alice stood behind him. "I have verified his calculations. The readings match unusual energy fluctuations near the station. He is correct. I. Readings." The chair's gaze shifted to her. "You vouch for him?" "Yes," she said. "I trust what I saw. The device works. The fractures exist. A hush fell over the room. Humans had a reputation for risk-taking and creativity. But even the most daring member of the assembly rarely spoke with such confidence. Her endorsement mattered. The reptilian counselor leaned forward. Even if your device works, what proof do we have that a rift would be dangerous? Perhaps it is a harmless anomaly. Jonah hesitated. He wanted to scream. He wanted to wave his hands and explain every calculation. Instead, he focused. The energy patterns indicate instability. The fractures are not natural. Subspace itself is being strained. If a rift opens, I cannot predict what will come through. But the energy is alive, responsive, adaptive, and it is growing. A council member with 4 arms, each ending in delicate, precise fingers, tapped one finger on the table. You suggest an unknown entity may enter our space and harm the station. Jonah nodded. Yes. I cannot stop it alone, but I can help detect and counter it if the council allows me to act. The chair's translucent face shimmered with thought. And your solution? Jonah hesitated. Then he gestured toward the scanner. If we combine my scanner with targeted energy pulses, we can stabilize the fractures, or even close them. It is dangerous, but it may be the only way to protect the station. Several council members exchanged glances. A few shook their heads. Risky, one muttered. A human tinkerer proposing to alter subspace itself? Jonah swallowed. Yes, risky. But the alternative, doing nothing, could destroy everything. Vesper Station. The habitats. Thousands of lives. This is real. Alice stepped forward again. I am prepared to support him. We cannot wait for proof after disaster strikes. The station must act now. R. 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 The chair was silent for a long moment, eyes reflecting the swirling stars outside. Very well, it said, finally. We will permit a trial. You have limited resources, human. Your prototype will be deployed under council supervision. Any failure, and you are responsible. Jonah's chest tightened. Understood. Elise gave him a small nod. We have a chance. That is enough for now. They left the council chambers, and Jonah felt both relief and fear. The scanner was ready, but he knew the trial would not be easy. Subspace fractures were unpredictable, and unknown forces were behind them. Back in his workshop, Jonah and Elise began preparations. Jonah laid out schematics, cables, and spare components. He worked quickly, assembling the scanner's new attachments designed to stabilize the fractures. Elise observed quietly, occasionally handing him a tool or reading a specification aloud. Hours passed. Jonah's hands were covered in oil and sweat. His goggles fogged, and the humming of the machine filled the room. Are you sure this will work? Elise asked. Jonah paused. I hope so. I have run simulations, but simulations are not reality. Subspace is unpredictable. She nodded. Reality tends to be more stubborn than simulations. Jonah laughed briefly, though it sounded hollow. You're right. I just need to keep trying. Finally, the machine was ready. He attached the final component, and the scanner hummed with power. The room filled with soft blue light, and the fractures appeared again in the projection. This time, Jonah manipulated the controls to send small pulses toward the largest crack. The energy responded, shifting and stabilizing slightly. Elise's eyes widened. It's working! Jonah smiled briefly, exhausted. It's working. But just a little. We need a real test outside the workshop, near the station's exterior. That is where the fractures are strongest. The council would not allow him to deploy it alone. They would send inspectors and safety officers. Jonah did not like the idea, but he had no choice. Subspace fractures did not wait for council permission. As he prepared the scanner for transport, Jonah looked at Alice. "Thank you," he said quietly. She raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For believing me. For helping me. For not shutting me down immediately." She smiled faintly. "Someone had to. Now, let's make sure the station survives." The next morning, Jonah and Elise moved the scanner into a small human shuttle. The council had assigned 2 inspectors, a technician, and an alien security officer. The shuttle's engines hummed as they detached from the station, moving toward the area where the largest fractures were visible. Outside, the void of space seemed calm, silent, and infinite. But Jonah knew better. Somewhere in that silence, subspace was straining, pushing, waiting. He activated the scanner. The fractures appeared in the projection, larger, more threatening than ever. Energy pulsed like a heartbeat, unpredictable and powerful. Elise leaned over the controls, monitoring the data. "It's growing faster than last night," she said. Jonah nodded. "I know. That's why this test is critical. We stabilize it now, or we risk letting it expand unchecked." The inspectors exchanged uneasy glances. "We've never seen subspace respond like this," one said. "It's alive." Jonah's heart beat faster. "It is alive, and it's aware of us." A ripple passed through the fractures. The scanner picked up the energy, and Jonah adjusted the pulse parameters. The projection shimmered. The cracks wavered. For a moment, it looked as if the fractures were responding to him, testing him. Elise's voice broke the silence. "Jonah, it's moving toward us." Jonah swallowed. "Stay calm. We are still in control. Keep monitoring. We can do this." The shuttle's hull creaked as the scanner emitted a higher pulse. The fractures shifted, twisted, then slowly began to stabilize in the projection. Jonah's hands flew over the controls, sweat on his brow. Minutes passed like hours. Then, finally, the cracks slowed. The largest fracture contracted, smaller veins fading. The station's sensors confirmed the effect. Alice exhaled. "You did it. You actually did it." Jonah smiled, exhaustion and relief mixing. "We did it. The fractures are slowing. Not gone, but manageable." The inspectors took notes, the security officer nodded, and even the council technician seemed impressed. Jonah had proven that human ingenuity, stubborn, chaotic, and relentless, could succeed where conventional methods failed. For the first time, Jonah allowed himself to believe. Maybe humanity's stubborn determination had a place among the stars. Maybe, just maybe, he could save the station. The shuttle drifted in the shadow of Vesper Station's outer ring, engines humming softly as Jonah and Elise monitored the scanner. The fractures that had seemed only theoretical in Jonah's workshop now glowed like fissures in reality itself, stretching through subspace like jagged veins of light. Every pulse of the scanner revealed more of the pattern, and every pulse was met with a subtle, unpredictable reaction. The energy was alive. Elise glanced at Jonah. "The council is watching every reading. If the fractures react to the scanner differently than expected, we could be blamed for disaster. Read. End a day." Jonah nodded, fingers hovering over the controls. "I know. But we don't have time for perfect safety. Subspace doesn't care about our schedules or permissions." Outside, the void seemed to shimmer. A strange distortion twisted the stars, bending them like reflections on a warped mirror. Jonah's heart tightened. This was no longer a simulation. This was real and growing faster than anything he had predicted. "Jonah." Elise's voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed concern. "The largest fracture, look at it. It's widening." He leaned closer to the console. Sure enough, the fracture had expanded. thin veins stretching outward, writhing like something alive. Energy pulses flickered across the projection, faster than his scanner could stabilize. "It's adapting," he muttered. "It's trying to resist the pulses." Suddenly, a ripple of pure energy surged from the fracture. The shuttle shook violently, alarms blaring. The crew members yelled, gripping their seats as the hull strained under the sudden force. Jonah slammed a hand to the controls. "Stabilize the pulse! Now!" Elise's hands flew over the auxiliary panels, adjusting the scanner's output. Blue light coursed through the machine, brighter and sharper than before. The fracture's jagged edges wavered, twisting under the pulse, then recoiled slightly. Jonah exhaled. For a moment, it seemed under control. But that moment ended quickly. From the heart of the fracture, a form began to emerge. Not solid, not entirely matter, but light and energy, coalescing into shapes. At first, it was like a flicker, a shadow in the shimmer. Then it became taller, wider, more defined, an entity of pure energy, moving with intent. "Jonah," Alice whispered, gripping the edge of her seat. "It's coming through." Jonah's heart pounded. "Stay calm. The scanner can handle it if we maintain the pulse." The entity moved closer, pulses of energy radiating from it, testing the shuttle's shields. Instruments flickered. Systems warned of overload. The inspectors shouted in alarm. Even the alien security officer pressed himself against the wall, tail flicking nervously. Jonah worked frantically, adjusting the scanner's frequency, matching the entity's energy patterns. "It's intelligent," he muttered. "It's responding to us." The energy being twisted, a swirl of light and darkness, and struck the shuttle with a pulse that sent it spinning. Jonah barely kept control. Panels sparked. The projection flickered wildly. "Jonah, we can't hold it much longer," Alice shouted. "The fracture's energy is too strong." He clenched his jaw. He could not fail, not now. Too much was at stake. Jonah remembered every simulation, every late night, every risk he had taken to build the scanner. He was human, stubborn, and relentless. And that might be the only thing standing between the station and disaster. "Hold the pulse steady," he commanded. "I'll try a counter-frequency. We have to push it back." Alice nodded, her hands moving with precision over the controls. The scanner glowed brighter, veins of energy thrumming through the hull of the shuttle. Jonah adjusted the counter-frequency, sending waves of energy toward the fracture, toward the entity. The projection flickered, and for a heartbeat, the entity wavered. Then it struck again, harder this time, sending the shuttle spinning. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and one of the inspectors screamed. Jonah gritted his teeth, hands flying across the controls. "You can do this," he muttered to himself. "You have to." The scanner pulsed, blue energy wrapping around the fracture like a cage. The entity twisted, resisting, but the counter-frequency held. Slowly, painfully, the largest fracture began to contract. The smaller veins followed. The energy pulses of the entity slowed, flickering in place, unsure. Alice watched, monitoring every spike. "It's working. The cracks are closing." Jonah exhaled sharply. "Keep it steady. Don't let it slip." The entity gave a final surge of resistance, a flash of blinding light that shook the shuttle. Jonah braced, gripping the controls as the hull groaned. Then, the light dimmed. The projection stabilized. The largest fracture shrank, the smaller veins fading. The scanner's pulse hummed softly, steady and strong. Elise let out a long breath. "It's contained. For now." Jonah leaned back, sweat on his brow. Exhaustion weighing on him. He had done it. They had done it. For the first time, the energy entity no longer pushed against the scanner. It hovered, flickering, observing, but not advancing. The shuttle's systems stabilized. The inspectors exchanged shocked glances, muttering among themselves. The alien security officer straightened, tail twitching, still wary. Jonah turned to Elise. "We bought time, that's all. But it's alive. It's aware. And it's watching." Alice nodded. "We need to report this immediately. The council must understand that containment is temporary. The fractures will grow again if we are not careful." Jonah's hands rested on the console. "We'll need more than the scanner. More power. More control. And we'll need a plan to deal with the entity if it comes through again." The shuttle began its slow journey back to the station. The fractures had been stabilized, but Jonah knew it was only a matter of time before they tested him again. Subspace was unpredictable, and whatever lay beyond the fractures had noticed them. In the quiet of the shuttle, Jonah allowed himself a moment to breathe. His hands shook slightly, exhaustion catching up. He glanced at Alice, who was monitoring the scanner with calm precision. "You saved the station," she said quietly. He shook his head. "We saved it, for now, but this is just the beginning." She looked at him, eyes steady. "Then we prepare. Humans are stubborn. We survive. We adapt. We fight when we have to. That's what makes us human." Jonah smiled faintly. Her words, calm and certain, reminded him why he had risked everything. Humans might be small in the galaxy, but they were clever, resourceful, and resilient. And that might be enough. As the shuttle approached Vesper Station, the fractures glimmered faintly in the distance, a reminder of the danger that lurked beyond. Jonah knew the next challenge would be even harder. The entity had observed them. It had tested them. And somewhere, beyond the folds of subspace, it was learning. But for the first time, Jonah felt something he had rarely felt. Hope. They had survived. They had proven that human ingenuity, determination, and courage could matter, even in a galaxy far older and more advanced than themselves. And now, with the council aware, with the scanner ready for upgrades, and with Alice by his side, he was ready to face whatever came next. The fractures were far from gone. The entity was far from defeated. But Jonah Ricks, human tinkerer, stubborn and determined, had made a difference. And in a galaxy that often underestimated humanity, that mattered more than anything else. Jonah Ricks stood in the control bay of Vesper Station, staring at the projection of the subspace fractures. The blue lines pulsed with an eerie energy, growing stronger and faster than ever. The entity had tested them once, but Jonah knew it would not stop. It had learned. It was aware. And somewhere beyond the folds of space, it waited, watching for weakness. Alice Cade stood beside him, arms crossed, her calm gaze fixed on the floating map. "The Council has approved additional resources," she said. "Extra power nodes, automated drones, and reinforced scanners. But the final deployment will have to be manual. No one else can operate the prototype like you do." Jonah rubbed his temples. "Manual means I have to go outside the station. Into subspace. Into whatever is out there." She nodded. "Yes, that's the risk. But if you don't, the fractures will expand beyond our control. The station, the habitats, everyone will be in danger." He took a deep breath. "Then, I have no choice. Let's finish this." The shuttle was prepared. Reinforced hull, extra shields, the upgraded scanner bolted securely inside. Drones lined the perimeter, ready to provide support if needed. Jonah and Elise entered, the council technicians giving last-minute checks. "Remember," Elise said, "I'll guide the scanner remotely if something goes wrong. You're not alone out there." Jonah nodded, gripping the control handles. The shuttle detached from the station, engines humming steadily. Outside, the void stretched endlessly, black and silent. but the fractures were alive, pulsing, twisting, and glowing like veins of unstable energy. As the shuttle approached, Jonah activated the scanner. The device hummed, blue energy racing along its veins, projecting the fractures in sharp detail. Small pulses of energy emanated from the scanner, interacting with the cracks, nudging them toward stability. A pause. Then, the entity emerged again. Not solid, but an energy form coalescing, brighter and sharper than before. It seemed to stretch and twist, responding instantly to the scanner. Jonah's heart pounded. This was no longer a simple test. The entity was aware of him, of the station, of everything he did. Stay focused, Alice said. Match its energy patterns. Keep it contained. Jonah adjusted the frequency. Pulses of blue light flowed toward the entity, forming a cage of energy around it. The cracks responded, shrinking slightly, but the entity resisted. It pulsed violently, energy striking the shuttle with immense force. Alarms blared. The hull groaned. Drones fired support pulses, but nothing could fully stop it. It's learning faster than I can adapt, Jonah shouted. Yes, but you're human, Alice reminded him. Humans are stubborn. You learn too. Use it. Jonah clenched his teeth. He remembered all his nights of tinkering, all the failures, all the small adjustments no one else could understand. He adjusted the scanner's pulse, adding subtle variations, unpredictable patterns that matched the entity's own rhythm. The energy form recoiled slightly. Confused. Good, Alice encouraged. Keep going. The cracks trembled. The entity thrashed, energy flashing around it like lightning. Jonah pushed the scanner harder, pulsing faster, stronger, weaving counter-frequencies that forced the cracks to collapse. The projection showed the fractures shrinking, the veins fading. Then, the entity surged. A massive wave of energy struck the shuttle. Jonah gritted his teeth, holding the controls as sparks flew inside the cabin. Panels flickered, lights dimmed, and one of the drones was shredded in the blast. Jonah! Alyssa's voice was tense. You can't hold it much longer. He took a deep breath. I know. But I have one more adjustment. He tapped into a backup power reserve, diverting every ounce of energy from the shuttle's engines into the scanner. The veins of blue light glowed brighter than the sun, pulsing with power that threatened to overload the machine. Jonah adjusted the frequencies with surgical precision, weaving them into a complex pattern that mirrored the entity's energy flow. The entity twisted, pulsing violently, then slowly recoiled. The fractures began to shrink more rapidly, veins collapsing into nothingness. Jonah's fingers flew over the controls, guiding the pulse, keeping the entity trapped in the energy cage. Almost there, he muttered. A final surge of power shot from the scanner. The entity flickered, twisting in place, then vanished, absorbed back into the collapsing fractures. The cracks shuddered once, then disappeared completely. Silence. Jonah exhaled, dropping his hands from the controls. The shuttle hummed softly, systems stabilizing. Drones were intact, though battered. The projection showed calm, normal space. The entity was gone. The fractures had been sealed, at least for now. Elise let out a long breath. You did it. The station is safe. Jonah's body slumped, exhaustion catching him. For now. But something was watching. It learned. It will come back. Elise nodded, placing a hand on his shoulder. Then we prepare. You've proven the scanner works. We'll strengthen it. Build more units. Humans adapt. We fight back. That's what we do. Jonah smiled faintly. We did it together. Not just me. Humans and aliens. Working together. The shuttle turned, engines humming steadily, heading back toward Vesper Station. The void stretched endlessly. Stars glittered, distant planets rotated silently. and space seemed calm. But Jonah knew the calm was fragile. Subspace was unpredictable. And somewhere beyond, unknown forces might still be observing. When they docked, the council greeted them with cautious relief. The inspectors were shocked, but impressed. The alien security officer nodded with respect. Jonah was exhausted but alive, and the scanner was intact. The chair of the council spoke first. "This is remarkable. You humans, with your stubbornness, ingenuity, and courage, you have saved Vesper Station." Jonah shrugged. "I just did what I had to. And I had help." He gestured toward Alice, who gave a modest nod. The chair's translucent face shimmered. Then the council recognizes the value of human creativity and determination. "You have shown us that even in a galaxy older than humanity, your species can make a difference." Jonah allowed himself a small smile. For the first time, he felt proud not just as a tinkerer, but as a human. Later, in his rebuilt workshop, Jonah placed the scanner on a pedestal, examining its smooth curves and pulsing energy veins. Elise entered, carrying a cup of synthetic coffee. "You're quiet," she said. "Thinking about the next challenge?" Jonah nodded. "Always. The fractures are gone for now. But we saw what's out there. We have to be ready if it returns." She smiled faintly. "Then we prepare. Humans are stubborn. We survive. We adapt. We fight when we have to. And sometimes," she paused, "we give each other something better than the last solution." Jonah looked at her, understanding exactly what she meant. They had faced impossible odds, survived, and learned. The galaxy was dangerous, but humans had something unique: determination, creativity, and courage, something better than mere survival. He smiled. "Then I guess we'll keep building something better." Outside, the stars of Vesper Station glimmered, distant but bright. Humanity had proven its worth, not through weapons or power, but through ingenuity and courage. The galaxy would test them again, surely. But Jonah knew one thing: humans would always find a way. And with the scanner, with Alice, and with the stubbornness that defined them, they would face the future together, undaunted, inventive, and unbroken. For the first time, Jonah truly believed. This was just the beginning. Humanity had a place among the stars, and no force in the universe could take that away.